Hi everyone, today I would like to talk to you about this particular bicycle. It's a velocipede. So this is the very beginning of bicycles in the world. This one was made by the Olivier brothers, who had just taken over a company that was started by a guy called Pierre Michaux, and he was recognised really as the inventor of the bicycle. I'll do another program sometime about the very early days of cycling and who invented, because there's a guy called Lallement, and he was part of the sort of the argument as to was it invented in America or was it in France. It's uncertain, but there's a big story that we haven't got time particularly to go into, so we'll do another story on this. This bike though particularly I would like to talk to you about. So very standard in its format. It was made by the Olivier brothers, as I said. So the name badge, which is on the back of the main spring here, which supports the seat, you can see it on there. It says Ancient Maison Michaux, and that really tells us who made it and where it was made, and therefore we were able to date it. So it was 27 Rue Dijon, or I can't remember, Jean Coujon, I think it was, can't remember now, but that means we're 1869. So very early. 65 is probably when the bicycles were invented. So the construction is very basic. It's a diagonal backbone frame made out of a malleable iron, and that really controlled the main sort of structure of the bike. The spring support brackets, very traditional, come up the back here, that support this central bar that is actually a spring, so this thing then bounces up and down. We call them velocipedes, which is sort of the correct name. They were called, I guess, maybe at the time, but certainly looking back at them, bone shakers, and it's because they were real bone shakers to ride. So you sit on it, you pedal the front wheel. So as you turn the front wheel, the pedals go with you. And all of the early bicycles were what we call front wheel drive, or front drivers. Very nice, this thing. When you're looking at closer detail, the pedals have these counterweights underneath them, so that whatever happens, the pedals always fall into a position so you can put your foot onto them. If you look at the pedals themselves, they're very small, very narrow, because the men of the time wore much tighter fitting shoes as opposed to the big training shoes that we wear today. And you've also got an adjustable crank length. So depending on the length of your leg, you could have it either higher or lower. So that was sort of the easy adjustment. The wheels equally got larger, so the larger wheel you had, the more gearing you had, but therefore the longer legs you needed to ride it. The construction of the wheel is completely traditional for an early wooden wheeled velocipede, i.e. wooden hub, wooden spokes. The wooden part around the outside here is called the felloe or the felly, and then the what we call steel band, we still refer to it as the tiring. So you ran on a steel tire. So that was the very standard sort of design of a very early wheel for a velocipede. You've got quite similar really to a modern bicycle. The dropouts here, so you take the retaining bolt out, and you've got a split bearing at the bottom that enables you to take the wheel out. Being a Michaux bike, it's numbered. On this bike you'll see there's a number. You'll find it on the forks. It's either on the back of the forks or you can turn them through 180 degrees, so it'll be on the front of the forks. This one's quite interesting because it's also numbered on the hub itself, and I can't quite point to where that is, but they are both numbered. There's a little step back here, and that's a very nice detail. So that enabled the rider to scoot along, pushing with his foot with the leading foot on it, a bit like being on a scooter. So his foot would be on here, so that would be your left foot on that. You would then come forward, plonk yourself onto the saddle, bring this forward onto the pedals, and off you would go, because it's obviously quite a big machine to ride. And then the brake, quite an elaborate affair, but actually very simple. And this was a simple gearing. So by turning the handlebars, which twist around, it pulls this lever here, which puts the brake onto the iron tyre. So it slows it up. But because there's no freewheel in the front hub, you are in effect a direct drive. So your braking ultimately is done through your legs. So that's it. It's a lovely bike. It retains a lot of its original pinstriping, which is quite rare. The pinstriping, particularly on the frame, tended to get pushed off by the corrosion of the rust, and it tended to stay on the wheels a bit more. But yeah, I mean, it's a lovely example of a very early riding machine. One other bit, these. So the French call it a moustache, we call it hock rests, and that enables the rider to freewheel down the hill. So you take your legs off, you lay your legs over either side here, and then whiz off down the hill. So you can see, you know, this makes it much more a touring bike. I mean, I've got a frame back here that you can't really see, but that's much more a racing machine because there are no hock rests on it, and it's finer and slightly lighter in construction. So but that ultimately is a fairly good giveaway as to
what is that for? Is that just decorative?
It's a decorative finish. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting bike, and I'll get into that at a later date. But it's interesting particularly because of the wheels, and the wheels are a tension spoke. But there's a whole new story on another day about that. So yeah, the Velocipede in its purest form, really. I think they're a beautiful looking machine. This one can be ridden. I probably wouldn't ride it, but we may just do a very short demonstration of this being ridden around the yard at some point. Predated the penny farthing, and the penny farthing came about as the wheel got bigger, which gave you greater gearing. But I'll talk about that on another time. So the this is a Velocipede.